I'm Kelly Jennings, CEO of Powerband Solutions. Powerband is a cloud-based provider of auction, inventory, and finance solutions that make buying, selling, and financing vehicles more efficient. Powerband Solutions trades on the TSX Venture Exchange symbol PBX and on the OTCQB symbol PWWPF and on Frankfurt symbol 1ZV. For more information, please visit us at powerbandsolutions.com.
You're listening to HowStreet.com radio, available online at TalkDigitalNetwork.com. Welcome to HowStreet.com radio, the online source for market opinions. Here is Jim Goddard.
My guest is market historian Bob Hoye. He's the chief investment strategist for chartsandmarkets.com. Welcome back to the show, Bob.
Yeah, hi, Jim. Here we are.
Turkey is now in a currency crisis, but are they the only ones?
No, actually, this appeared earlier in the week where the guy Zero Hedge had a really good headline, and I'll read it. Slowly at first, then all at once, emerging markets currencies are crashing across the board. So it's not just one country, although I guess that Turkey would be a fairly important one. And then today we've got currency crisis in Turkey. Erdogan, the president, calls on citizens to sell dollars and buy lira to support the lira, and that is desperation. But, you know, we go back to July of 1997 when, actually it was the July 1st, long weekend thing, the story came out of Thailand that all of a sudden their central bank reserves were disappearing and their currency was crashing. And so the media wrote it up as, oh, this is isolated. It's just Thailand. And then a week or so later, Philippines, same story. And then again, the media insisted that it could be contained, and then it kept spreading. So that was through July, August. And then it arrived in New York City in September, and they had one of the worst months in their corporate bond market. I think it was in a decade. So we're quite aware of what happens when outlying regions suddenly have a financial problem, and they inevitably will feed into the major markets, which would be New York and London. Now, this one is a collector's item written by the Roman writer Cicero in 66 BC. Well, again, this is a quotation. If some lose their whole fortunes, they will drag many more down with them. Believe me that the whole system of credit and finance, which is carried on here at Rome in the Forum, is inextricably bound up with the revenues of the Asiatic province. Jim, by that he means the Middle East, Phoenicia. Then the quote continues, if those revenues are destroyed, our whole system of credit will come down with a crash. So there you are, you have the financial crash written by Cicero back in Roman times. So this is a serious threat. You've got the spreads, credit spreads widening, the EMB, the emerging market bond ETF is coming down. The EEM, which is the emerging market stock ETF, it's coming down. And here we are, and it's August. And when is the season for things to be discovered to be a problem? And of course, that's in the fall. So what we were looking for this year would be out of the hit into February that New York and Canadian stock markets would recover until around May. And we also, as you recall, we talked about our friends of the bull market, which would be rising industrial commodity prices like crude oil and base metals and lumber. And there were some very good rallies there. As a matter of fact, lumber did a bubble. It just went straight up, and it's come straight down. Then the other friends of the bull market were credit markets, narrowing credit spreads. And now that's beginning to not reverse trend, but let's just sort of call it falter. And then the other is the yield curve, which is the difference between long rates and short rates, have been on trend with flattening, but the same thing beginning to falter. So the friends of the bull market are not as friendly as they have been. You now have hard evidence of problems in outlying stock exchanges. And we also know from history that if the crack in the outlying regions is severe enough, it'll come through to the senior markets, which means New York, Toronto, London, Europe. So, as a matter of fact, there was a quote about that, the central bankers in Europe are concerned, and this is the connection, Jim, about banks in Europe that have loaned money to Turkey. So it's all connected, isn't it?
We'll have more with Bob Hoye right after the break.
Media recognition from Bloomberg, Reuters, recycling trade publications, patented process for 100% recovery of critical metals, including cobalt, lithium, nickel, manganese, aluminum. American Manganese is focused on recycling lithium-ion batteries for electric vehicles. American Manganese trades on the TSX Venture, AMY, the US, AMYZF, and Frankfurt 2AM. For more information, visit AmericanManganeseInc.com or phone me, Larry Ray, at 778-574-4444.
Hi, I'm Douglas Mason, President and CEO of Magnum Gold Corp. Inc., MGI on the TSX Venture Exchange. A 2015 drill program on the LH property intersected high-grade gold, including 16.9 meters of 13.58 grams and 11 meters of 20.66 grams per ton gold. A follow-up drill program is planned to further evaluate previously identified subsurface high-grade gold mineralization. Please visit our website at magnumgoldcorp.com.
Welcome back. We're chatting with Bob Hoye. Bob, didn't this all start with Greece and then Argentina?
Earlier in the year, yes, there were concerns about that, and but this one, of course, being the time of year we're at, one wants to focus on it because, as I've said, that if there are serious problems, they would likely be discovered in the fall of the year. And this seasonality goes way back. You had the first great financial bubble in 1720 called the South Sea Bubble. And, Jim, you needed for that, you needed a market of stocks. So by the late 1600s in London, there were enough publicly traded stocks and enough participants so that you could call it a stock market. And then modern finance arrived in 1694 when the Bank of England was formed. And it was a bit of a promotion, like one of the words was, it would infallibly lower interest rates. So the modern world of finance has existed since, let's say, 1700. The first bubble brewed up in 1720, and that one peaked in June. The South Sea stock itself got up to a little over £1,000 and divvied around in the summer and then tipped over and crashed into the fall and eventually went back down to £120. So it was one of those. But so the pattern, the worst was September into October, and then the final clearing, like another attempt to decline, completed in November. And so each of the great bubbles after that, and 1825 was a fabulous one, but it didn't really clear until December of that year, so a month out. 1929, of course, the high in New York was in September, and the problem. So then, where you have evidence as to the time of year when you're having a problem, it would be in the fall. The only earlier one was when there was a problem in mortgage markets in northern Italy in 1346, 1347. And there was a financial historian by the name of Cipolla who wrote a very good account of that one. And the crisis in that one were in the fall of the year. So it just seems to, you can't explain why. And of course, one doesn't need to know why. Well, you just sort of need to know when. And so we're lying that. It's like Vancouver in the summer when you're down having a picnic in English Bay and you get to about 8 o'clock and all the crows start flying east and the cormorants, which are waterfowl, they start flying west. Where they go, I don't know, but you can count on it most evenings. So again, you don't wonder about why on that. You just note that you could make bets on it, I guess. So here we are, August, and we'd say they were on path for some kind of financial distress in the fall.
We'll have more with Bob Hoye right after this.
Arctic Star Exploration, operated by a team of proven mine finders, is focused on diamonds in Finland and the Northwest Territories of Canada. Work programs are underway in Finland and planned for Canada this summer. Arctic Star trades on the TSX Venture Exchange symbol ADD, on Frankfurt symbol 82A1, and the OTCQB symbol ASDZF. Please visit our website arcticstar.ca or call us at 604-689-1799.
Don't miss out. Stay informed. Receive the HowStreet.com weekly recap with thought-provoking podcasts, radio, and articles delivered to your inbox. Sign up for the HowStreet.com weekly recap on our homepage at HowStreet.com.
Welcome back. We're chatting with Bob Hoye. Bob, copper has had a huge drop over the last few months. It picked up a little bit today. But is this an indication the Chinese market is in trouble? Because China right now buys about half the world's copper.
Yeah, copper followed our outlook for this year and rallying up until around May, as did the other base metals, and they've been hit. But we had a target around 272 for copper, and that's pretty close to what it's been. And the downside has been severe, so technically there could be a rebound in here for the base metals. And also, lumber got very distressed here, and it could pause and then do a rebound. But crude oil didn't get the whack. It got the rally we wanted, but now it is vulnerable. So the base metals and lumber could rally. Also, the action in gold technically is now interesting, whereby we could get a rally in those. But on the base metals, this would be just a brief rally in a bear market. We should keep in mind that seasonally, copper can have a low in around November, and lumber can have a seasonal low around December, and crude oil can have a low sort of December, January. So those are kind of seasonal influences that are not to be denied or to be recognized. So now, gold going into a crisis is interesting. As you know, we haven't been calling until this week. I haven't been calling much for gold because the U.S. dollar has had a nice rally and then has been in a trading range. So in a crisis, the senior currency tends to go up in a crisis. So it comes back to what careful money could be doing, and careful money isn't so much interested in the return, it's getting the money back. So then you have to go for the most liquid items, and that typically is gold. And it's also short-dated instruments in the senior currency, which is the U.S. dollar. So where you can look for an increase in investment demand for gold, also in some pressures, the money would be buying U.S. Treasury bills, which implies a bid for the U.S. dollar. So stay with the view that we don't see making too much money out of the gold in U.S. dollar terms. But if you're in other currencies, they could fall with a problem, in which case then you'd make some money on gold. So we stay with the view that if you're in the U.S., you should have some gold, sort of like an insurance thing. But we're not looking to make too much money out of it. This could be just a quick trade in here, a nice bounce for base metals and precious metals, but don't see anything on the intermediate horizon. And of course, when the next bull market comes along for the sector, it could be really quite a cyclical bull market. It's been in a cyclical bear. But our timing and technique stuff will get us positioned in the gold stocks at about the right time. I'm pretty confident on that. So, yeah, we're in fascinating markets. Plus, you've got the political markets, where one of the greatest political storms in history is going on, in the struggle between the popular uprising, which would like to reform and reduce a very intrusive government, and of course, those that have been bringing you intrusive government, they don't want to quit, and the public's getting fed up with in-your-face and in-your-wallet government, and I think eventually the reform movement will win. And in the U.S., you've got their midterm elections in November, so there's going to be a lot of focus on that. But I'm very hopeful about the reform movement, which is attempting to reform not just the intrusion by government into ordinary life, but it's also the immense corruption that goes on in government. It's so difficult to find accountable government and to police it, whereas excesses in the private markets, they always get corrected, and criminal acts will be eventually discovered and punished, but the criminal acts going on in government, they can remain buried for a long time, and this is very interesting in the U.S. now, where the Department of Justice is very reluctant to investigate probable criminal activities by any of the Democrats. And of course, it's very reluctant to investigate probable criminal activities by senior people within the FBI. The irony is unbelievable. But this will also be a subject of reform by a highly motivated political uprising going on. So, Jim, in the financial markets and in the political markets, it's a wonderful time to be alive.
Well, when you say reluctance to look into corruption, the NDP report on cost overruns on the Port Mann Bridge in Vancouver, Greater Vancouver, they didn't go deep enough to find out if there was any corruption behind it. It's like they're scared to pull that last curtain open to see what's there.
I guess so. Mind you, I don't think British Columbia is nearly as corrupt as Quebec is, but it's very difficult to have a government that is accountable to the people. Mainly, the bureaucrats exist for themselves, but we're in a time such as the early 1600s when the public is interested in less government and also having it accountable. And in England in the early 1600s, you had the Star Chamber headed up by Archbishop Laud, and if you didn't conform to their ideas and you had some money, well, your estate could be confiscated. And then in order to make it obvious that you were an outlaw, you had your ears cropped and your face branded, mainly because you defied the certain policies or certain defined heresies. So here in North America now and in Europe, if you deny the concept of man-caused global warming, you are in effect a religious heretic. But the tide on that one's beginning to change as well, where I just saw here it is. What issues are causing American stress? Number one, healthcare. 2 was economy, trust in government, hate crimes, crime, and climate change and environment was at the bottom of a 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, a 12-point list. So, and yet the energies by the promoters on climate warming and climate change are just phenomenal. And the amount of money that they're taking out of the system to push their favorite subject is staggering. And yet it's at the bottom of a list of concerns on a recent poll. It was a Bloomberg poll done by Americans. So, as I say, this is fascinating stuff, Jim.
Bob, thank you so much for chatting with us.
Yeah, and we'll do it again next week.
My guest has been market historian Bob Hoye. He's the chief investment strategist for chartsandmarkets.com. You're listening to HowStreet.com radio. Find us on Twitter at HowStreet. You can forward questions to our guests like Bob or to the show at info@HowStreet.com. And don't forget our YouTube channel is Talk Digital Network. I'm Jim Goddard. Thanks for listening.
Comments made on HowStreet.com radio are an expression of opinion only and should not be construed in any matter whatsoever as recommendations to buy or sell any financial instrument at any time. Available online at TalkDigitalNetwork.com. HowStreet.com radio is a production of HowStreet Media Incorporated.